All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this. I don't know what we're even calling it. Just a LinkedIn Live, Substack Live. But I'm John Macaskill. I'm a retired Navy SEAL commander. And now I both co host the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast, and I co founded and co run the Focus Now training company. And both of those I do with my good friend, Will Schneider. And with that Focus Now training, we teach corporate and industrial sector teams how to actually manage their attention and perform under pressure. And then I'm here today with someone I've been wanting to do this with for a while, and that's Janel Penaflor. She's a neuroscience-based environment, health, and safety EHS consultant. People call her the safety disruptor. And when you hear what she's about to lay down, you're going to understand why. And here's what this is not. This is not a compliance lecture. This is not going to be a PowerPoint on the protective equipment that we need or fall protection. None of that. You working within the safety space, you already have that covered. What we are going to talk about today is the operating system underneath the hard hat, the human brain, and why it keeps failing your best people at the worst possible moments, even when they know the rules, even when they've done the job 1,000 times. As a matter of fact, sometimes when they've done the job 1,000 times, that's when it's most dangerous. They get complacent. So, Janelle, so good to be doing this with you. Why don't you start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself? And I've got to just inject this real quick. I learned this about Janelle before we started going live here. She used to jump out of airplanes with her dad. We won't mention the
Granddad.
airstrip that it happened at.
Yeah,
Um,
granddad. Granddad.
yeah,
Yeah.
granddad, sorry, with her
Granddad.
granddad
Yeah.
when she was 12 years old. So that's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and let's see.
So, a little bit about myself. Sorry, were you all
Yeah.
done? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no. Let's
Okay.
go.
A
Let's
little
go.
bit about myself. I've been doing safety for anybody that's in safety, and hopefully, I got some of my folks on the call that know who I am. But I've been doing safety for a little over 36 years. So, been there, done that, got the t shirt, probably had to talk to you about once or twice, right? And I got into it because I'm a natural hazard to myself. I'll be completely honest with you. And figured I should probably learn about that. No, I actually started my career in medical school. Right out of high school, I was like, oh, I'm going to jump into medical school. I want to go, and I'm really excited about learning how people work, learning about their biology, their psychology, all those things. Found out that I got a little too attached to the folks inside medical school, and I was like, I need to not be the one that's putting them back together. I need to be the one that's keeping them from getting broken in the first place. And so I pivoted and started going into occupational health and safety and operations, etc. Along the way, what I learned is that a safety professional is very compliance based, especially in the years that I was doing it. I've been doing it for a while. So you start out with following all the rules, all the procedures, you learn all the processes. And in the process of going through how we do safety in business, I learned that we are missing something very critical, which was the mind that's driving the decision making that's happening. So, some people that I kind of connect with is like Todd Conklin and Sidney Decker. They talk about how you need to have the human component to it. There needs that human factor. I was very blessed to be able to train with Nancy Levinson, and she kind of walked through how that human factor impacts decision making and process safety, et cetera. And I also believed that you needed to take it one step further, and you needed to not just think about the human, but what's driving the human. And the thing that's driving the human is their behavior and their brain. And I have two very wonderful, very amazing neurodivergent children. Excuse me. And I discovered I am also neurodivergent myself. And so I thought, wouldn't it be really fascinating and great if I tied in the neurodivergent person and the neurodiversity and neuroscience of how we think and how we do decision making, and bring that into safety and into the safety world and how that works and uh, we respond to and how we identify risk. So that's what I do. I have worked in many different fields, very high risk fields. As you mentioned, I like to jump out of airplanes. Most people don't. I've been in mines, on oil rigs. I've been in a lot of very aviation, high risk, intense areas. And after reading both of your books, well done, by the way.
Thank you.
I saw
Thank you
so
for the
many.
plug.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I saw so many connections between the military and how you guys trained on how to really calm yourselves and how to maintain situational awareness and how to control your mind in those situations, that mindfulness piece of it. And so when you invited me over, I was so excited because I was like, oh, this just is just perfect. It just aligns brilliantly. So thanks. I enjoy being here. I hope everybody enjoys the interaction.
Awesome, awesome. And you can comment if you're watching live on LinkedIn or on Substack. You can comment, and we'd love to hear from you. Um, but one thing, Janelle, that I've seen, I've worked within the various industries that are out there. I've worked within corporate side, and what I keep hearing from safety directors that I've worked with, and this is over and over, it's the same thing, is something to the effect of our people know the rules. They've kind of been through the training. They've been through the training so much, and we're still having incidents, and they don't understand why. And everybody treats that like it's a discipline problem, right? And people will start hiding things that they are seeing on the site. That's when it becomes a culture problem. They don't want to report it because they're afraid of getting in trouble, or it becomes a training problem. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's really none of those things. It's an attention problem. Again, the operating system underneath the hard hat. So your crews are showing up with the right certifications and the right training, but their brains aren't available to use any of it, right? And nobody's talking about that. They are talking again about the training, more PPE, better knives. I mean,
Yeah.
like the, the
Yeah.
the things that people spend a lot of time talking about. I'm like, man, this is not it. If they think about what's happening before their people even clock in, right? What were they focused on when they left their house this morning? Do they have something? I think you called it the kill switch, right? Like, can they
Mm-hmm.
can they turn off some of the stuff that's happening in their mind so that they can focus on what's right in front of them right now? So that maybe they're before they clock in, they're sitting in traffic and they're doom scrolling while they're at a red light. They're checking notifications. They're worrying about a kid who's struggling in school, or a romantic relationship that's on the rocks, or whether they're going to make rent this month, right? And all of that is eating into those same cognitive resources, the same brain fuel that keeps them alive on the job site. And so, um, Will, my business partner and co-host of the show, he talks about the attention economy quite often, and that economy is real on the job site. Every tech company on the planet is spending billions of dollars to steal your workers' attention. Right? Social media is engineered for that, and that's before they even walk through the gate or walk through the door in the office. And then we hand them a toolbox and say, be safe out there, right? and
Yeah,
and I saw the
absolutely.
the same thing in the SEAL teams. In sustained operations, 72 hours, 96 hours of continuous movement, watching targets. The guys who made mistakes weren't the undertrained ones; they were the cognitively depleted ones. The
Yeah.
fancy way of saying
Yeah.
tired. they
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
good. They're good operators. They had the right skills. Their brain had nothing left in its tank, though, and that's what's happening on your job sites every day, just slower, and nobody's measuring it. That I spoke for a long time there, Janelle.
Oh,
Can
you're
you
good.
break
You're good.
break down what's
You're
actually
hitting all the
happening?
points. Yeah. So there's a couple of different things just to unpack in there. You mentioned that they're cognitively depleted. Absolutely. I use an analogy in some of my speaking engagements where I say We are our own worst enemies when it comes to distractedness and to building bad habits. I say that the device that we have, these little things right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have turned ourselves into what I would uh, align us with Pavlov's dogs, because
Absolutely.
we basically, every single time that it dings, every single time that it vibrates, every single time, we literally feel that stress inside our body, and our amygdala gets hijacked of what's important. Oh, you need to
Mm-hmm.
look at it. You need to give focus over here because it's something that could be a big deal. And we find out it's the latest TikTok video or something like that, right? But
Right.
we've built those habits of, I need to pay attention to this because in my brain I've made it important. Now, whether you made that device important because my family's in here and I have now a hearts and minds attachment to this device, I have emergencies come through to me through here. In a safety professional world, they probably have two phones. They have one for home
Right.
and one this, and then the other one
I've
that's the
seen
red
that.
phone, right? The oh my
Right.
gosh phone. And that oh my gosh phone rings 24/7. And that safety professional is on call. You better jump high, and you better be ready to put out an all point bulletin because stuff's burning down. And so we get conditioned around urgent and emergent, and we don't get a really good chance. You mentioned those deployments where, or those ops where you're having to give so many hours and so much attention. Your safety professionals, in the back of their mind, they're constantly processing, you have to get up, you have to be ready, and you have to be ready to go now, and don't mess up. And
Mm.
so that's that processing that's happening, and it's behind the scenes. So even when you wake up, you may not feel completely rested because you've programmed your brain that you have to be on 24/7, and so your brain doesn't really shut down all the way. It doesn't say you're done. So,
Right.
and I don't know if you noticed this in the military, but I've seen in my teams for safety professionals, when they get a day off or when they get vacation and they don't have to answer to anything, like one full day of their life is just sleep. Because their body finally says, okay, you don't have to be responsible and you don't have to be in this heightened sense of alert all the time. And they just need
Mm-hmm.
to shut down and they need to reset and give their brain a break. Um, the other thing that you mentioned was that not only are we cognitively distracted, but that stress is leaning into our decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have something that's going on and it is in the back of my mind, it increases my fight or flight in just the mammalian part of your brain. So we're all designed for two purposes, right? We need to survive and we need to procreate. That's how we were built. And so every decision, every anything, we are already wired to make decisions and behave in those capacities. So our brain is already working in the background when we walk in the door to say, do I feel like I'm safe here? And am I okay to make, this decision without fear? Am I going to get ostracized? Am I going to be disassociated? Because if I don't fit in and I don't become part of this group, then I could potentially put my survival at risk.
Right.
And if I
Yeah.
put my survival at risk, then I put my genes at risk. I can't procreate. I can't have another mini me or whatever in the future. And that's all done like in the core of your body and in the base of your brain. And that's all involuntary. You don't get to pick. That comes from all of your genetics from way back when. So then that decision making and then your all of your experiences. So Chase Hughes calls it your backpack. You bring your backpack with you. And it has all of your old experiences and everything inside that backpack. And you develop that as a child. And so that kind of leans into the second part that you mentioned, which was the brain, the part of the brain that's working. And I call it fast brain, slow brain. Some people call it system one and system two. It's the easiest way is it's a habit loop. So when you, I'm going to use cars. Do you know how to drive a stick shift, John?
I do.
You
Yes.
do?
My
Nice.
dad
Nice.
my dad made sure I learned on a stick shift before I ever got into an automatic.
Perfect. Yes. I made sure my children knew how to drive a stick shift. Also, my sister and I learned how to drive a stick shift. Funniest, it could have been a YouTube video. Not kidding. Learning a stick shift, priceless, right? But if you think about when you were learning how to drive or learning how to drive a stick shift, especially because there's so many things,
Yeah.
you have to go into the front, into your prefrontal cortex in the front part of your brain, and you have to really think hard and you have to focus. It's an intense, intense focus of I have to learn this new skill, I have to learn this new thing. And it's exhausting at the end of the day because you have worked so hard in your brain to try to make sure, okay, I'm doing this, I'm shifting here, I'm moving the clutch, I'm doing all the things. So you're in the front of your brain until you start to get better at it. So once you start to build the loop, the habit loop, it starts to recess back into the lower parts of your brain. As it recesses back, now you're able to do a little bit more. Now I can turn the radio on and drive the car. And I know that I'm situational awareness in traffic better, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you become proficient at it, now I can do it. Now I don't have to think about it. And now it's back here and it's in the system uh, two part of my brain where it's this is habit. This
Yeah.
is I've stored it, and this is how my body knows how to act, and my body and my brain are working in tandem, and it's all happening. In safety, you have all that stuff happening in system two. You have all of your experiences, you have everything happening in system two. And in hazardous situations, and to your point, when we go out and we are experiencing something and we need to pay attention, we need to bring them back into that front part of their brain, into that prefrontal cortex, in that system one. We need to have them focusing, that hard focus, and look at something different and change it up, because
Right.
the people that have done it for 20 years, they
Exactly.
have those habits so ingrained that until you change it, they get, you could call it factory blindness. You can get, it's so familiar that they literally, their brain literally cannot see the hazard anymore
Right.
because they're imaging, they're they're seeing what their brain expects them to see. And you mentioned something a little bit like this in your book. I'd like for you to chat about that, like how your brain sees what you anticipate you're going to see
Yeah.
uh, in some of the stuff that you've done.
Yeah. I mean, I want to just carry that car analogy a little bit
Mm-hmm.
further. You know, when you learn on a stick shift and you go back to an automatic or go to an automatic, it's so much easier, so many fewer things. You don't have a clutch, you don't have to move the gears. Um, and then whether you're in a stick shift or not, like you said, it becomes easier and easier. And the dangers with that is, yes, you don't see the dangers coming at you, or but in a car specifically, that's why you see so many people texting and driving, is they take it for granted that they've got this driving thing down, they've got the traffic patterns down, they've got all that down, and they can text at the same time, and that is
Yeah.
such a dangerous way of thinking.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the car, whether it's on the job site. And yeah, there's there are examples of this from the SEAL teams. The when um, when I was learning to what we call fly the SEAL delivery vehicle, it's much like learning to drive a clutch. And the SEAL delivery vehicle is a small little submersible. It's almost like a mini submarine. But when you're in it, you're diving. And just like an airplane, when you push forward, it goes down in the water column. And when you pull back, it comes up. But it's very sensitive. And when you first get in there and you fly, I mean, you're trying to make tiny moves, but they end up being way bigger. And it goes down. And as it's going down, now your ears are getting pressed, and it's just it is
Mm-hmm.
complete chaos under there for the first few weeks while you're learning to fly this thing in the water. And then you get better, and it's like when you first start, it's like you're looking through a soda straw, and
Mm-hmm.
then you start to be able to see more and more and more. And yeah, it does, absolutely, you see things more initially, and then, like you said, you start to see it less. Like, even on my computer screen, I've got little stickies all over my computer screen, and when I first put it there, I notice it. And then after a week or so, I go blind to it. It may as well not even be there. On my mirror in my bathroom, I have some little inspirational quotes that are there to motivate me. And I would see it every morning. And after about a week, I stopped, quote unquote, stopped seeing it. But then I started moving it around. I started moving it around on the mirror just to put it in a different location. And when I did that, then I noticed it more often. So it's pretty wild how your brain can do that. It's yeah, you go blind to it, whether it's, on the battlefield, whether it's, a simple note on the fridge, or, something like driving and texting. Uh, you,
Please don't do
you get numb. No, right. Absolutely. Please do not drive and text. That is not what we're trying to tell you
it. It's
here. We're
not
trying to tell you
necessary.
to do the exact
Yeah,
opposite,
yeah,
to
yeah.
be focused on the task at hand.
But to that end, I sometimes when I do presentations and things, I always say, raise your hand if you've ever made it all the way to your house and you forget or you don't even remember how you got
I, I say the same thing. You drive the
there.
same
Mm-hmm.
way to work. And when
Yeah,
I'm presenting, I'm
I
like,
don't even
who
remember the
remembers the
drive.
drive to work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's just your brain is on autopilot. Your brain is taking over. If you drive a Tesla, it's even more frightening. I'm out here in Washington State. I can see people taking a snooze in their car while they're driving past
No
me. Very
way.
unsettling. My brain
Oh
goes
my
into flight
gosh.
right then when I see those happening. But that cognitive distraction, that cognitive distress, we also talked about how the fatigue affects you. So you are in that prefrontal cortex, and when you spend a lot of time there, you are fatigued, and it does wear you down. The issue is that it's not visible fatigue. When you spend a lot of time and you're having to focus and you're stressed and your brain is hijacking because it's in survival mode, you're wearing out your decision making motor without really knowing that you're wearing out your decision making motor. It's focusing on so many things. Think about it. We were chatting about this earlier. My sister got me a t-shirt. This is my brain has too many tabs open. Think about it on your computer where you have all these tabs open and you're trying to address every single thing in all those tabs. And your brain is really great at multitasking, but the problem is that it's not really good at focusing 100% on each task. So anybody that says that they're successful at multitasking is full of baloney because
They're
your
actually
brain's
the worst
literally,
ones,
yeah,
right? The ones who say they do it the best are technically
yeah,
or typically the worst.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it exhausts your brain, and you don't feel it like physical fatigue. You see it in your decision making, and then it gets worse when you add biological components or experience components to it. So for me, I have ADHD, and so my brain's going 900 miles an hour often. So I get distracted easily, and then I have to go back and go into my catalog, and I have to say, what was I just doing? So I am huge at going into a room and going, why did I come in this room?
Sure. Sure.
I do that all the time. And it's because I have so many tabs open, and it's because I'm trying to do so much at once in my brain. I literally, kind of like what you mentioned, moving the post it notes around, I have to hijack my own brain. So, some tricks that I recommend for folks that are dealing with a tired brain or dealing with factory blindness, everything looks the same, I don't remember, is change it up, even just one small change. If you're sitting at a desk for a long period of time and you find that you're struggling, maybe you're writing a book and you're like, I have a block, I can't, my brain's not processing. Take yourself up, go walk outside for 5 minutes, change your scenery, come back, and your brain is still processing all the information while you're out walking around, but you don't feel it. You feel the fresh air, you feel the sunshine, you feel the reset, and your brain is still working on the problem in the background. Then when you sit down, all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, now I'm ready, right? For me, I mentioned that I started in medical school and I had to learn math and I had to learn all the anatomy things. Well, it's a lot to unpack. And we had coloring books and
Sure.
all different things to try to learn it all.
Oh yeah.
And so, much to my family's distress, I also had post-it notes all over the flippin' house and they were color coded. And I would actually change the location of the post-it note. So one day it's on the refrigerator, the next day it's on the mirror, the next day it's on the door, whatever, so that I would change it up enough to have my mind pay attention to it. Because, like you mentioned, you see it so many times that you start to not see it anymore. And also saying it out loud to yourself in the mirror helps you to register it a lot better as well.
For sure. For sure. That I don't know if you remember the old Saturday Night Live skit with Stuart Smalley. Yeah, yeah. When he would tell himself in the mirror that he's good enough, smart enough, and that doggone it, people like him. I use that in my talks as well. But it's true. I mean that
Yep.
as ridiculous as that old skit was, there's some truth to it. Is staring yourself in the mirror and telling yourself, maybe not that I'm good enough, smart enough, and that doggone it, people like me, but if you're telling yourself, hey, you know what? I've got this LinkedIn live later today. I've got this. We're going to crush it. These types of things, you can really build up that faith in yourself, which makes it that much harder. Remember that much better. Um, let's talk about stress,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how contagious it can be. If you could jump in and explain the mirror neurons and
Mm-hmm.
the cortisol cascades, oxytocin versus cortisol, I'd love to know more about that.
Absolutely. So mirror neurons are from actually, quantum physics. And in essence, you can change something by observing it. And safety professionals know this very well because the minute that you have safeties in the building, all the behavior changes and everybody does it all perfect. And I call it safety theater. You know, they put on the show.
Right.
They say, "Oh yes, I'm bending correctly and I'm doing all the things." So it their behavior is changing because you're present. But you don't have to have a safety title or whatever. Your biology and the way that you respond to situations, the way that you present yourself in a room is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
People are born to mirror for survival. So if I mirror you, then I look more like you and you're more willing to accept me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am a stressed out management person and I go out onto the floor or I go into a meeting and I walk in and you can just feel the energy that's coming from me and it's negative. I don't have to say a word. I am
Yeah.
carrying that energy into the room. And my behavior will change based on that energy that I'm feeling. And I can still put on a fake smile and I can still pretend like everything's fine. But just that feeling, just that energy itself is transferable from human to human. And it will either spike your cortisol because we are built to survive and we are built to fight or flight. And is this person going to um, cause me pain or are they going to negative, like do I need to get away from them, do I need to put fences up from them, and or it's going to cause me joy. So laughter is also contagious, and happy and positive things are also very contagious.
Yes.
So
I was going to talk about calm being contagious. I can touch
yes,
on that here in a second.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
calm is very contagious. You in your space, the persona that you present to the world, what you're bringing forward is contagious. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that people respond to you is a mirror of how you're responding to the world.
Right.
So if you go back to the mirror, looking in the mirror,
Yeah.
and you think about that saying, if you think you're failing or you think you're succeeding, you're right.
That's right. Yeah.
It's your brain is only seeing the world the way that you're programming your brain to see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are not in charge of your own programming, somebody else, social media, news, any of those things, will
Yeah.
take over your programming.
And they
And
want to.
they will start to build your habits. And the way that they speak to you, the way that they present things to you, they do it in a very specific way, similar to how they use in the military for brainwashing.
Mm.
I'm going to present this and I'm going to make you feel in this way. And then I'm going to present this, which is going to make you feel this way. And then I'm going to give you the solution because now you're ready to make a decision based on how I've just made you feel. So winning hearts and minds isn't just about safety. It's about how are you influencing and being a positive force? And how are you raising not the cortisol levels in folks, but how are you raising the dopamine and how are you helping them to feel good about you being part of the room? And when you gain those hearts and minds and when you gain that respect and they don't feel like they need to fly from you or fight you, then they'll go through walls for you. And I think the military has a perfect example of how they bring that forward in their teams. That's the ultimate family outside of military, inside of military. Sometimes sport teams, they are able to accomplish this. Um, I would say for me personally, the biggest time that I felt that was with my children.
I was going to say the same
I'll go
exact thing.
mama bear all day long. Like, don't
Yep.
even, no. And even, and I'll say to a point, for me personally, even if their father became a threat to them, I would go against their father.
Sure. Sure.
That's my mama gene, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't touch my kid. And I think that's also very natural, very ingrained. And we bring that forward. And when we have folks that are harmonizers, they want to make sure everybody's happy, all that kind of stuff. We have guardians that are, I want to make sure everybody's okay. And those are those folks that you see out in your operations and things where they're looking out for everybody else. I want to make sure everybody's okay. I want to make sure that their cortisol levels are low, that their dopamine levels are high. And I'm not saying throw everybody a participation trophy, but compliments are free, right? But I'd love to hear about, like, how does the military, how do you guys in your space and in your mindfulness work that you've done, how are you impacting, like, how are you changing the chemicals that are being released?
Sure. Well, even before I get in the military, you talked about the mama bear.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about how, as a parent, the stress and the calm and the joy, those can all be contagious. If I go pick up my kids and I've had a really rough day and I don't take a moment to reset, pause, maybe rest my eyes just for a minute, then I'm stressed when I pick them up, and they will feel that, and then they get stressed. It's the mirror neurons again. Or vice versa, if I pick them up and I've had a good day, maybe I've taken some time to practice some mindfulness for 5 minutes before. That's typically what I do. I go pick them up in the parking lot and I'll sit there for 5 minutes, do some breathing, and the change in their attitude, their energy, I'm always like, wow, they're completely different people.
Yeah.
Well, it's driven by me, and like I
Mm-hmm.
have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And coming back to everything that now I'll go into the military side of things. I mean, everything you just said. But we had a phrase in the SEAL teams that calm is contagious, and that's true from training to going out, hanging out with your boys, and maybe something happens. If you're calm, that's contagious. I've been both. I've been calm with my guys. One instance that I'm not particularly proud of. We were driving back from Key West all the way to Virginia, and we had a box truck with all our weapons in the back of it. And one of my guys pulled up to the gas station to fill it up, and filled it up, and then cut the wheel too sharp after, and he ended up puncturing the fuel bladder on the truck, and fuel went everywhere. And I was not ready for that. I didn't see that coming, and I freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have other times where I have been the calm, literally on the battlefield, because my guys, maybe they haven't seen combat before, and I have, and I'm like able to calm them down. And when I calm myself down, then I can calm them down. And that calm is contagious. Yeah, it sounds like this great bumper sticker, but it's actually a tactical principle, because what Janel just described with the mirror neurons and the cortisol and the oxytocin and the dopamine. I mean, we live that every day in combat. I mean, if the team leader is running hot, if his nervous system is jacked up, the whole team's situational awareness drops. I mean, if you start getting amped up from an amygdala hijack, all the blood runs out of the brain and into the extremities to prepare you for a fight. That's why they call it the fight, flight, or freeze reaction, right? And that situational awareness goes out the window, and it's not a choice that somebody's making. It's truly how we're wired. It's the biology, and the team will pick up on that leader's state before a single word is spoken. Same thing with the kids, right? They'll see how we act. I just had a conversation. We just did a podcast on this very thing. I'm still on this mailing list from Bahrain. I lived there 2014 to 2015 in the Navy, And I got put on this safety list that, hey, if the security level goes up, whatever, you get this email. I still get these emails to this day. And I've tried to unsubscribe and it just hasn't happened. But I'll get emails right now, what's going on there in Bahrain, saying incoming missile attack, take cover. So I'm getting these emails. And I know that this is happening on the other side of the world, but I also know that these are our people that are in harm's way. And I got one of these emails the other day, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my eldest daughter. And when I opened up this email, and I was like, oh, like I tensed up. Didn't say anything, but I tensed up. And my daughter said, Daddy, what's wrong? She picked up on my nervous system response before I ever said a single word. And I've seen it on missions. I've seen it on the job sites, right? When a foreman walks onto the site already spun up, already frustrated about the schedule or the budget or the weather, or maybe his or her boss said something earlier that threw them off for the morning, the crew will feel it. And their ability to detect hazards around them, that drops right away, right there, measurably. And this is why managing your own state as a leader is really the first safety variable of the day, right? I worked with this one company. Every single briefing they did, whether it was out in the field, at the corporate level, even at the C-suite level, it started with a safety moment. Safety moment, safety moment. And that's great. I think that's something that needs to be done. But that first safety variable of the day is your own state. It's not the last, right? It's that we need to address is how's everybody feeling? Did everybody get adequate rest? These kinds of things, and the practical piece before you walk onto that job site, before you step into that crew meeting, if you can just take 60 seconds of a mindful break. So this is where the mindfulness comes into play. And for those who may not know me, that's a big piece of what I do is I teach mindfulness and meditation because it did change my life and quite honestly saved my life. But that's for another time. That's always for another time. But if you just take 60 seconds and take 3 intentional, focused breaths, and then during that, you name one thing you're going to focus on, scan the environment, that is a huge change in how you will show up for yourself, for your people, for your team, for your family. And, that's operational. That's you resetting the frequency that your entire crew is about to sync to. Because if you don't manage your state, you said if you don't manage your attention, the news media, social media are going to steal it away from you. Well, then if you don't manage your state, then your state manages your crew, right? So, anything else you want to touch on there? Because after this, I want to talk to why when people say just pay attention, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So one thing that I used to do when I was in operations, I coined it the 2-minute drill. But when I go in and I do presentations, I go in and I go to a whiteboard and I write down 2 minutes. And I ask the team, okay, why do you suppose I wrote 2 minutes? And some of them, they're smart Alex, and they'll say, oh, hopefully this amount of time you're going to talk to us because we're in this talk, right? Okay. And I'm like, yeah, well done. No, you're not that lucky. I said, really, the reality is that based on, I think it was 2019 data or something like that, probably when you had to push all the little buttons, it takes approximately 2 minutes to send and receive a text message. And I said, okay, I'm going to write another 2 minutes on here, write it on the board. And I said, what do you think that 2 minutes is? And they're like, I don't know, take a phone call. And I said, no, that 2 minutes is the average amount of time that it takes for you to change somebody's life forever. And then I write another 2 minutes. I said, what do you think that 2 minutes is for? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, 2 minutes is you going to a person and you having an engaging conversation and you're looking for 3 things. This is the 2-minute drill. You're going to see if they're mentally, physically, and emotionally prepared for their work that day. While you're speaking to them, you're looking at their eyes. You're seeing how they're doing. You're absorbing their energy, if you will. You're mirroring, and you're trying to understand what's going on with them. You're also looking at their PPE, you're looking at their tools and equipment, you're looking at their situation, you're looking for any kind of hazards or anything that might be setting them up to fail. Because especially if they're not mentally ready to go for the day or emotionally ready to go for the day, they are, for the next thing, nice segue, Janelle, not ready
Well done.
to pay attention, and they're going to be distracted, and they're not going to be able to see those hazards themselves. You will also, as a good leader, be able to say, are you okay? Do you
Hmm.
need to take a minute?
Right.
Is this a good time? Do we need to maybe send you home? Do you have some stuff going on outside of work? Are you here? Because my goal is to make sure that you make it back home. And right now I'm not feeling like you're in a good headspace. So are we good? Because I'd rather you go home and come back tomorrow and be refreshed and ready to go and have
Sure.
sorted out whatever you got going on, or go and take a mindful minute and go and reset and let me know how you're doing. And then I also know, as a leader, who do I need to go check in on throughout my shift or throughout my day to make
Right.
sure that they're still in a good space, and are they performing, or do I need to intervene? So that usually kind of helps them to focus and understand that how I respond matters, how I engage with my people matters. And they're not going to come up and tell me most often. And I joke because I work in a lot of industries where big burly guys don't want to tell me warm fuzzy things, right? They don't
Right.
want to tell me they're struggling. They don't want to tell me that they got crap on their head, that they have that something's happening at home, or my kid worried about my kid, or I'm just not in a good place right now. They don't want to say that to me. But if I go and I ask them, how are you doing? Is there anything that's different today that's going to potentially cause you an issue? Is there anything safety related that you would like to bring to my attention? Let's look at it together. I noticed this. Is that normally here? And you break their cycle and you break their conversation, you're going to be able to get a good idea of how are we going to perform today. And sometimes those big burly guys come in and they start crying in my office because they feel like
I've
nobody's
had that.
yeah.
Right.
So, but they have to feel like I'm not a threat to them. And they have to feel like I'm not trying to take their livelihood away from them and their families. And safety is often perceived as, I'm going to get disciplined. I'm going to potentially get fired. Somebody's going to come down on me because I'm not meeting production standards, but they're not setting me up for success. I run into that all the time.
Sure.
And so just making sure that we respond as leaders in a way that is, you don't have to go give them a hug. It's not all kumbaya, but you can go and you can pay attention, and you can say, you matter to me as a
Right.
person, and I want to make sure you're okay.
Right. Yeah. And this is not, or maybe it is, a shameful plug for my book, DIAL, dial in your leadership. That A is the authentic piece, and showing up as not only authentic but a curious leader with the beginner's mindset. That's when you're going to notice that worker maybe has a little strain in their eyes, or their way they're carrying their body language. That's that's critical. When I do a lot of my training, I will have people, they've been in the same building for 10 years. And I'll say, I want you to walk around for 10 minutes. I want you to walk around and notice things that you've never noticed before. And then ask why those things are the way they are. And then they come back and they're like, oh, I noticed the AED was here, and I noticed the exit, blah, blah, blah. They'll tell me all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, do you think I had you do that exercise so that you knew the building better? And some of them were like, yeah, we need to know where well, yes, that's true. You do need to know where the AEDs and the fire extinguishers are, those types of things. But really what I'm trying to show you is, you walk past people the same way that you walk past these objects every day, and there's things that you're missing. And if you are a leader who's paying attention, and I don't want to say invasive, but maybe intrusive. There's intrusive leadership. If you can ask, hey, you doing okay? That kind of thing. And it's not just, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Okay. We interviewed a guy on our podcast. He said, fine, FINE, is for feelings inside not expressed. Because that's truly what it is. Everybody is just so used to saying fine, or I'm good, I'm doing great. But really asking people, how are you today? So anyway, now I want to come back to, why the fact that when somebody says just pay attention, that doesn't work. All right. So An example: somebody has a near miss. The subsequent investigation happens, right? Because there's always an investigation afterwards, and that's great. There need to be those investigations. Um, but the conclusion from one of these investigations is that the worker failed to pay attention. The worker failed to maintain situational awareness, right? We've all seen that. And then the corrective action is what? Telling them to pay more attention next time, right? We've all seen that. Pay more attention. Well, that's like telling someone to be taller, right? It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Attention, focus, it is a skill and it has to be trained. And almost nobody in corporate America, training or trades industry has that training. We teach our people how to kill switch, tie something off, mark it out, how to tag it out, how to operate a crane, hours and hours of all this technical training. But the one thing that determines whether any of that training gets used in the moment, that's the ability to actually pay attention under pressure, and nobody trains that. And meanwhile, like I said, every tech company on the planet is engineering products. Again, these things and the things that, so I'm holding up my cell phone and the apps that are out there. I mean, it's down to the coloring and the logo, what's going to draw you in. It's specifically designed to fragment your attention. Your people are showing up with a brain that's already been hijacked before they even put that hard hat on. So here's the reframe, and this is really what our company is built upon: mindfulness. And I know when oh my gosh, talking about the big burly guys, when we walk into a conference room or whatever where we do some of our training and we tell them that we're going to do some mindfulness, I can see their eyes glaze over and they're like, I cannot wait for this day to be over, right? It makes people cringe. But by the end of the day, similar to what you mentioned, some of these burly guys will come up to us and they'll pull us aside into a side room and they'll cry. But I also, when I say the word mindfulness, I am not meaning meditation. It's not meaning sitting cross-legged and saying Om, right? I mean, that's great. If you do that, there is science behind why that's good. But for our purposes, it's one thing and one thing only. Mindfulness is, and it boils down to situational awareness. We use tactical awareness in the SEAL teams. I mean, that's critical. The ability to notice what's actually happening right now instead of running on autopilot while your mind is 3 problems ahead or 2 regrets behind. The difference between a focus worker and a distracted worker is not motivation. Right. Pay attention. It's not, they didn't sit there and say, you know what, today I'm not going to pay attention. It's not that they need to care more. It's not that they need to want it more. It's training, and it's training, period. So again, I've been speaking for a bit there. Janel, talk about, if you would, what's happening in the brain with that habituation and why experienced workers, we mentioned this before, are actually more vulnerable to this.
Yeah. So we kind of started off by saying you're building your habit loops. And those habit loops are deep and they're embedded. And you get super familiar with the job, and your brain was trained that X plus Y equals Z, X plus Y equals Z. And I've done it 100,000 times. And because I've done it 100,000 times, I'm actually mapping in my head and I'm building ruts in my brain.
The neural pathways.
Those neural pathways, I'm building the rut, and I'm saying it always looks like X plus Y equals Z, always. And I am tunnel visioned into this is X plus Y equals Z, and my rut is deep. So you can say X plus Y equals N now, because we've had a change management, or we've done something different, or we've got new equipment, or we've got whatever. And my brain is still going to default into Z. And until I build the new neural pathway, until I build the new rut, we said that our brains are prediction machines.
Hmm.
And they're going to see what my brain is telling me I need to see there. So there's actually all kinds of studies and things where they've proven that you are limited by what your brain is projecting out into your reality because of the neural pathways that are stuck and rutted into your brain. So you
Sure.
may literally look at it and not be able to see N because your brain has been telling you Z for 20 years.
Right. Right.
And so seeing N is a real struggle because it has to bring you abruptly back into the prefrontal cortex, and it has to bring you back into that learning mode that you've already built 20 years with a habit around. And so, great, we're doing a new thing and I'm learning and I'm building the new neural pathway. But my very ingrained one is my habit. And when we do training, and one of the things I call out in all the stuff that I do is that we do very ineffective training most often. And training professionals get a little salty when I say that thing, but this is the reason why. Because we say, here's a 28-page PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to sit you in a classroom, or we're going to put you in front of an LMS system, and we're going to have you tab, 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 because you have other things you need to do. We're going to try to build in some cognitive functions where we actually have you ask a question, and we're going to hope that it's sticky. And then we're going to send you out back into the job that you've been doing with your neural pathway of 20 years. And we're going to tell you, you learned all about that change to N. We told you about it. We trained you on it. Why didn't you change your behavior?
Right.
Well, because the training that we did wasn't in the environment where the N needs to happen. It was in a classroom with coffee and donuts and whatever else. And I got to
Yeah.
sit in air conditioning, or I got to do this, and I cruised through it because I don't have time for this. And kind of like what you mentioned, the body language. You want to know the least popular person that walked on the job site is a safety professional.
Safety person.
You get hate looks all over the place, like, oh gosh, safety's here. And so if we're not training them in the moment and training them in the job, then it's not going to be sticky and you're not going to rebuild those neural pathways. The other thing is that you mentioned and that I've seen is we're not training them where the stress happens.
Hmm.
So we're not putting them under the pressure of what to experience. So, for example, if I go, we're going to have a fire drill and we're going to do the fire drill, and everybody knows their muster points and everybody knows your buddy and everybody's going to sweep the building and they have the captains, blah, 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 blah. And in a perfect scenario, in a sunshiny day, we're all going to go out and we're going to do the fire drill until something catches on fire. And then all of that training and all of that mapping goes out the window and you
Sure.
start going into fight, flight, or, freeze. And so if I haven't built that pathway deep enough with enough experience in the exact situation, my brain is going to say, I haven't been trained for this because this situation is new. I am trained in a classroom. If you tell me what to do in a classroom, I can regurgitate everything that you just told me. And I can get
Sure.
100% and I can say, yeah, give me the certificate. But if you put me in the stress situation and I haven't been trained in that tense situation, then I'm going to fail.
Right.
Aviation figured this out with pilots, hence the simulators. And the simulators train the pilots to fail safely. So you can be in a stressful situation when the bird hits the engine and the hail's coming down and all the different things, and you have to figure out, your brain has to wire and build the neural pathways around, how do I do this in this very stressful environment and still do it the way I was trained? Because now you're training and you're building the neural pathway in the moment, the way that they're going to experience the moment. I can loop it back to my children,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I have a young man. My youngest was an escape artist. Absolutely. Break out of anything. Absolutely anything. I used to warn anybody that was babysitting, if you leave him too long, the higher up he'll be when you get there. He climbs everything. He gets into everything, all of it, right? I needed to learn as a parent that me saying, no, don't do that, that's unsafe. He's like, I'm fine. It didn't kill me yet. I'm fine, dude. It's fine. I'm good. So I had to rewire how I train him. And so I would literally take him into fire stations and I would literally take him into situations where we would put him in fail safely kind of risk situations so that he would learn, like, this can hurt you. And I need you to stop, because his brain was not wired to receive that that could actually hurt you. I mean, he was the little guy that would reach up and say, "Oh, mom says it's hot." Psst, yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
hot.
of course. I have
And
to
then
feel
it's
it.
like, is it still hot? Let's try it again. And 10 times. And it's just like, how many times are you gonna burn yourself before you learn that's hot? But that's how he had to learn something. We have so many neurodivergent people out there now. I would say that anybody that isn't neurodivergent is a smaller number. So
Really?
neurotypical, I would say, is a smaller number than most neurodivergent people. And because they process risk differently, because they receive information differently, their ability to stay in the moment is going to change. So, shameless plug on my part, the persona framework and stuff that I've built is around identifying that personality in that person. So, I use it off of Jung's theory, and it's what type of personality are you, or what type of person, and how do you respond to risk? And then how do we make sure that that's the response? Like, we train to that way of responding. One person is going to say, I don't want to jump out of the airplane, Janelle. You can't make me jump out of a perfectly good operating piece of equipment. And another person is like, let's go, strap me on, do this, right? So we need to train in the situation to the brain that we're talking to. We can't assume that everybody learns the same way. We can't assume everyone experiences and responds to risk the same way. And we can't assume that the same training is going to sink and stick with every single
Sure.
person. We really
Sure.
have to speak to their brain. And we really have to speak to the mindfulness of what calms them down
Mm-hmm.
and what spikes their cortisol levels. So that's, you say that there aren't tools. I've built tools. I'm sure there's other tools that are out there. I haven't found a bunch of them yet. That's kind of why I niched it out. But that to me makes such a leaps and bounds different. And I learned it from my kids, because my two neurodivergent kids taught me more than any psychology degree taught me. It was, how do I help them to be successful in a world that looks at everybody this way?
Right.
We
Yeah.
all can walk, talk, and act the same, and we don't.
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think of an example. So coming back, not so much about the neurodivergent piece, but about being able to react because you've trained in a stressful
Mm-hmm.
situation. That's
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of what we do is actually live fire shooting. So you while you're out there, you have to be tuned in to what's happening. But another example was when we were on the submarine, we would have to what's called lock out of the submarine, and it's coming out of this larger. It's kind of like a big garage on the back of the submarine. It's called a dry deck shelter,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a whole bunch of different emergency procedures that you have to know. And you sit there and you recite them in a class. You recite them, out of a book, and the only way to really learn them is to practice them. And this is for the submarine crew and for us. And there were times when they wouldn't tell us it was a drill,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be I forget all the emergency procedures now. It's been a minute or two since I've done these, but the submarine, there's one. If the submarine quote unquote loses the bubble, that means it's starting to sink. And you are out there on the surface of the submarine. You cannot sink with that thing, so you have to learn to get off of it. Well, they would say emergency procedure, whatever, and then they would act like was really happening, and we had to swim to the surface or get into the SDV or do whatever. And learning under that stress is really what drove it home. Even though we had learned it 1,000 times in a book, it didn't work until you practice it under stress. So let's talk about some things that do actually work for driving these points home. Janelle's talked about why. Well, here's a few things what to do about it. I'm going to talk about a few that we teach, and then I'll throw it back to you, Janelle, to talk about what it is you do. And yeah, this is definitely shameless plug time. So yeah, there you go. So I'm going to give you 3 tools that your crews, for those watching and listening, can really start using today. And then there's no app, thankfully, because if there was an app, it would probably get distracted. But there's no app, no equipment, no certification. It's literally just practice. So the first one I mentioned before is that 60-second reset. And this is something that I do before I get on stage. So before we hit record, Janel talked about that she does not get anxious before she steps on stage for public speaking. This is literally what I do for a living, and I still get nervous. But before I step on stage, I take those 3 controlled breaths that we talked about. So it's pre-task, mid-shift. It's whenever you're starting to feel a little distracted or anxious. 3 controlled breaths, and slower on the exhale than the inhale, because that's literally physiologically what turns on your parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is where you calm down. And then you notice, or rather you name one task, one focus for that next task. Then you scan your environment, and that takes under a minute. What it does is reset that prefrontal cortex, which Janelle talked about earlier. That's the part of the brain that runs like a battery, and you're giving it kind of this micro charge, but it has to be online to be doing these complex tasks. So do something like this before every task transition. Again, Janelle talked about multitasking. We really can't multitask. It takes you time to reset. But if you do something like this 60-second reset before every task transition, before you climb, before you operate, before you enter a confined space, it becomes automatic, faster than you would think. And Janelle, I just noticed that the time is at the top of the hour. How are you doing? Can you go a little bit longer? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right.
As long as they're willing to watch, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So number 2, the second thing that you can do is literally an attention audit. The start of every shift, you ask yourself, you ask your crew one question, and what's the one thing most likely to steal our focus today? And maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the budget, schedule pressure, maybe it's the fact that half the crew just found out about layoffs, or maybe the company's being acquired and they're concerned that they may be getting laid off, whatever it is. Name it out loud, because once you name it, you can own it, and it stops running you from the background. And this takes 30 seconds in a toolbox talk, and it completely changes the awareness level for the rest of the shift, because now the crew has shared understanding of what's the threat, what the threat is to their attention. And then the third thing is the transition ritual. And this one's about the boundary between work and not work, and creating a physical or mental cue that tells your brain, I'm switching modes. And you also need to tell those around you that you're switching modes. I work from home, and during COVID, when my kids were home as well, or during the summertime when they're home, they'll come into my office and they'll just start talking to me. And I'm like, hey, sweetheart, I'm at work. And they're like, no, you're not. You're at home. So I started wearing a particular hat. I'm like, okay, if I'm wearing this hat, I'm at work. And if I'm not, that's when you can come up and ask me questions. But, on the job site, and take it back to something that's relevant to those who are watching. If you step onto the job site, you have a moment, a breath, a phrase, something that says to your brain, okay, tune all that other crap out. And I know I'm saying this after just saying, just focus, pay more attention. But if you take a minute, take that breath and say, okay, we're on focus mode. At the end of the day, before you walk into the front door at home, you do the same thing in reverse, because the guys who can't let go of the job site, guys and gals who cannot let go of the job site at the end of the day, are the ones who are mentally depleted before they even show up the next morning. And these transitions matter, and nobody teaches these transition tools. So those are 3 that we teach. Janelle, what are some of yours?
I have a ton of tools, but I'm not going to plug them all here. If you want to know more about all the tools, just reach out to me and ask me, Janelle, what do you have for this? I'm not a stuff person. I can sell you stuff off the shelf all day long. It's not going to solve all the problems. The biggest thing that I would say for this particular engagement and for the folks that are watching is, number 1, know thyself. Mm-hmm. Understand what your triggers are and how you're responding. When I go and I talk to folks out in the field, a lot of my executive leaders, especially in operations, they say, We're programmed to fix problems. We're programmed to make solutions, and we're programmed to get it done quickly because that's how business moves forward. But if you are so hyper focused on those things, then your tendency to blame the person is going to happen, and you're going to want to fix them. And you're going to
Sure.
be like, why did you do that? And the way that the language that you speak to them. So, one of the things I talk to folks about is instead of walking up and saying, John, how did you hurt yourself? In the back of your head, you're automatically defensive. I have put you
Sure.
on the defense because I just accused you of something.
Right.
Instead of saying, can you walk me through what happened? Change the narrative of how you're speaking with people. So, the first thing I would say is know thyself. Write down, this is how I would respond if somebody came up to me in a stressful situation. This is how I ask questions. Do I ask questions out of curiosity, or am I asking to tell? Am I telling people, you said somebody gets hurt, stop getting hurt, stop doing that. Why did you do this? What's the matter with you, right?
Grow
How we
taller.
respond to them is so important, right? Because our energy is contagious. And so when you know what triggers you, when you know how you're coming into the room, when you know what's driving you and what your responses are, pick one and change the one. Put the post-it notes on the mirror, do whatever, tell yourself in the mirror, today I can do hard things, or today I'm not going to overreact, or today I'm not going to blame somebody, I'm going to ask more questions. Just change one thing and then start that going. And then your brain will reward you with dopamine because you made a
Yeah.
change that had a positive result on somebody that had a positive response to you. The other thing is that I would say give yourself grace. You're a human. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to feel overwhelmed, and you're going to revert, just like every other human in the world. You're going to revert back to your old habits and what's familiar and what you've wired into your head. When you revert back to those things, whether they're old habits, whether they're anything, give yourself grace and say, I went back into my rut. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I call it, a rut. I went back into my rut,
That's what
and I
they
need
are.
to get myself out. And so this is how I'm going to get myself out, starting this moment or starting tomorrow. And count the days if you need to of your successful days. This is how many days I went without doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put Amazon things in my basket today. Yay, win for me because I built a rut of
That's
shopping for Amazon, right?
me too.
Whatever it is. And you have another podcast that kind of touches on addictions and things. These
Yes.
this is getting yourself out of those ruts in your brain. And so how do you celebrate your own success? You need to give yourself grace. You need to program your brain that I can do hard things and I can overcome. And if you don't do that programming and you have negative talk to yourself and you have negative talk to your brain, if you're winning or losing, you're right. Right? If you think you're winning, you think you're losing, you're right. So you really need to change how you speak to yourself, and you really need to change how you approach things because your energy is contagious. Outside of that, I would say just work on those things, and you will see such a huge paradigm shift in just your leadership style and just the way that you approach people and the risk and the trust levels that you receive from your teams. Because at the end of the day, it really is hearts and minds, and it's not. My tagline is psychology before procedures and people before paperwork.
Psychology before procedures, people before paperwork. I love that.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. I think I
So
might have to steal that. Well,
TM. No.
funny. Trademark, baby.
Yeah.
Well, funny you should talk about rewarding yourself. One of my good
Yeah.
friends that I do some work with, her name is Dr. Teresa Larson. Well, her
Mhm.
name isn't Dr. She is Dr. Teresa
Mhm.
Larson. And now I've lost track where. Oh, yeah. The
Rewarding
reason I
yourself.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason I stopped there for a second is I used to say, my name is Commander John Macaskill. And I had
Mm.
somebody say, well, that's not actually your name. Your rank is Commander. Your name is John Macaskill. And so now I catch myself all the time. So anyhow, she works for a company, or she founded a company called Movement RX, as in movement prescription. And she gave me this just a few days ago. I'm not sure if you can see that, Janelle, but it's behavior change goals. And it's 90 days that you check off, and you get a little dopamine hit every time you check that off. And I've
Mhm.
got my goals written on a separate one. I didn't want to show mine, but it's pretty cool how you can change your behavior through Just those incremental small changes over time. What is it? The 1%. If you're 1% better every day, there's a massive change that happens over a year. But if you make no change, then you're the same. And if you make a negative change, then, it's the same thing in reverse. So we'll start to wrap this up here. And I want to be very clear that, we both want you to hear this really. And that none of this is necessarily a wellness program. And these aren't like these feel good exercises. These are operational performance tools that also just so happen to keep people alive. So here's what I think we both want you to take away from today. Your crews, your teams, your people, they're not lazy, they're not careless, they're not ignoring your training. Their brains have been asked to do more than any human brain can handle without the right tools. And right now, almost nobody is giving them those tools. That's Janel brought the why today, and that's why I brought Janel on to discuss this thing. What's actually happening up here in the brain, the neuroscience behind why good people keep making critical errors, and the practical tools we both share are what to do about it. The questions you have to ask yourself, the question you have to ask yourself is whether you're going to keep throwing more training at what is fundamentally a bandwidth problem, or whether you're going to start treating attention and mental performance as the safety variable that they actually are. So if this conversation was valuable to you, please share it. Tag your safety director, tag your L&D lead, tag someone who needs to hear this. And both of us are right here on LinkedIn. Focus Now Training, the company that we have, that's on LinkedIn. And we do keynotes and workshops. And hopefully we're going to team up with Janel at some point. And we do that for construction, tech, engineering teams. And Janel's right here too. Janel, I would love it if you would close it out for how people can find you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I am also on LinkedIn. My business that I have is called Safety Sense, SCNSE Inc. INC. Don't get it confused with Toyota Safety Sense. But it's all how we make sense of safety. And I have a podcast that's going to be coming, and John's going to be coming on to that. It's called The Kill Switch.
Yes.
And yes, it sounds really weird, but it's super trendy. And I'm going into that neurobiology thing of you're going to be able to remember it, right?
I remember it.
Yeah. And I have some tools and techniques and everything. But like I mentioned, I would rather you guys reach out to me. Let me know what your pain points are. Let's talk through like what I have built and how it could potentially assist you. And if not, then there's a way for safety professionals to just train to do and learn from me of all the things that I've done over the last 36 years. One thing we didn't mention, because it's kind of a Debbie Downer, but it's a reality, is I've been part of over 56 fatality investigations.
Oh, ouch.
And so I can tell you the name of every single one of them. I can tell you exactly what happened. And I can tell you that more often than not, we blamed the person. And we said the person was the problem, and that's why the event happened. And that is the underlying motivation behind the reason that I do the work that I do, is because we can't keep blaming the person when the system is failing. And the system is failing because we aren't understanding the human in the middle of it, the way that they think and the way that they respond to risk. So, I have tons of stuff, white papers, you name it. I could throw all kinds of stuff at it, but I would just love to just have the opportunity to have conversation with folks and to continue to spread the word and the message. This is,
there you go.
Like I told you at one point, this is my calling. This is what I do. People always say, I'm pretty sure you would do it for free. And I said, yeah, I probably would, but please don't make me. But yeah.
Right.
So
yep.
It's a pleasure chatting with you
Janel,
and learning from you.
fantastic
and I will
speaking
give
with you
another
too.
plug. The 2 books that you wrote are very good.
Thank you. Nice and short.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed them.
Well, thank you so much, Janel. I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing all your wisdom, your knowledge. And yes, I do know that crews out there, team leaders, they can all use this. So thanks to everyone who tuned in. So take what you learned today and go take care of your crews. Until next time, take care.
Awesome. Cheers.